Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, SFDR is in the air, organized by Lingua Custodia and partner Sequentis LT. While everybody connects, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Ines, marketing manager at Lingua Custodia, and I will be today's moderator. Today we will discuss about SFDR and also the AI solutions that will help financial institutions tackle this new regulation. If you have any question during the webinar, you can use the Q&A box down your screen. Just type it here, and then we will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. All right. Also, I would like to let you know that this webinar is being recorded, so you will have access to a replay at the end. I will now leave the floor to our two speakers today. We have Nicolas Fournier, CEO of Sequentis LT, and also Olivier Debeugny, CEO of Lingua Custodia. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Olivier Debeugny, CEO of Lingua Custodia. I'm very happy to welcome you on this webinar, which is jointly hosted with Nicolas, who is leading Sequentis. And so today we're going to introduce you to a solution that Lingua Custodia and Sequentis have developed together. Today, in the post-COVID world, we believe that it's very important for tech companies to offer integrated solutions to their clients. And this is how the story went between Lingua Custodia and Sequentis. We started in 2020 to think about what we could propose together and how we could integrate our solutions. As many of you know, when you talk about tech, you hear a lot the word API, which is a way to connect different technical solutions and platforms between them. And this is how Sequentis and Lingua Custodia got connected in order to propose a machine translation solution specialized for the type of documents that are being produced within Sequentis platform. And this is what we are delighted to tell you about today, with a specific focus on SFDR reporting. I'm going to give the floor to Nicolas now.
Thank you, Olivier. So welcome, everyone. To introduce Sequentis, we are RektTech specialized in regulatory reporting for asset manager, but also for institutional investors. Since 2 or 3 years now, we worked on climate and ESG solutions to allow to fully understand any investment portfolio. That leads us naturally to integrate in our regulatory reporting solution, SFDR reportings, for both pre-contractual and periodic report. We will mostly speak about periodic reports. I try to switch to the next slide. So, SFDR, as you know, has a timeline that is mainly started right now. This year will be dedicated to classify the product between Article 6, 8, or 9, depending on the sustainable objectives of each product. And starting at the end of the year, it will be the beginning of the production of the periodic reports of SFDR. Okay, periodic reports, we will discuss a little bit. You have an example on the slide. We need a lot of extra financial data that could be difficult right now to consolidate, particularly the taxonomy components. So it's not an easy exercise, and it's in 6 months right now. This year, it's dedicated to the review of the prospectus, to the pre-contractual documents, which are mostly on the way and more easy, as this is the description of the sustainable objectives. Next year, it will be the periodic reports, and after we'll have the PAI, so the negative incidents, which is another challenge. So just to summarize, for periodic reporting, it starts at the end of the year. First production, it's beginning of next year. It needs a lot of extra financial data, depending on the criteria that are defined as the objective of each product, of course. But it also needs a view on the European taxonomy to break down companies' activities with all the details needed by the last SFDR consultation. Olivier, your turn.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Nicolas. So just to introduce quickly Lingua Custodia and what we do. So we're a tech company based in Paris with operations in Saint-Quentin-en-Yvelines and as well with an office in Luxembourg. And what we create is ultra specialized machine translation engines dedicated to the financial world, but we do engines by document type, because there is a specific jargon for each type of document. You're not going to translate things in a fund prospectus like you would in a portfolio management commentaries. You will need many more words in English in target language in a fund fact sheet than you would in a fund prospectus. This is how we have identified those different type of lexic and type of documents for the asset management industry as well, for the brokers, for the custodians, and for the investment banks. So today we propose our solution of specialized machine translations to many financial institutions. Those engines can be customized for the clients because translation is very subjective. It's a secured approach. There is no cloud involved. But direct connections between our clients and ourselves, and our platform can handle many different types of formats, from the Microsoft Office formats to also PDFs. Maybe before going further, Nicolas, now that we've introduced both our companies, you could do a quick presentation of how Sequentis platform works and how machine translation engines created by Lingua Custodia are being called in the platform. Trying to give you back the control.
Okay, thank you, Olivier. So, first of all, we have built a SFDR periodic report in French. Okay, because this is our natural language. What is a SFDR periodic report? This is something that will integrate regulatory description, narratives with the objectives, how the objectives were reached, and quantitative data. You will see that we have carbon footprint, ESG, with the variation, investments. We have also the breakdown by sectoral exposure, and we have the taxonomy component of the investment portfolio. So now we are in a stage where we have fully built the first report in French. Okay, this one is really close to what we think should be produced beginning of next year. Now, if I go back to the platform, I have everything that you have seen on screen in French, but in English, I have nothing. So what we built with Lingua Custodia is an automated translation dedicated to each regulatory report, where we plugged right now the artificial intelligence of Lingua Custodia, and we are able to launch the translation on the fly.
And this
So
is,
Olivier, maybe you want to explain a little bit how the translation is working?
yes. As we speak, you know, what's happening now is that the text which is contained in the Sequentis platform is being sent through API to Lingua Custodia specialized engine, and the one which is being used for the SFDR reports is an engine that we have developed with a particular tilt to be able to handle the ESG terminology, and which integrates as well the EU taxonomy that Nicolas was mentioning just before. And here you can see the process is completed and within the platform. And Nicolas can then now generate the SFDR report in its target language.
And so right now we have fully translate and produce the same periodic report as the one we were looking previously in French, but now everything is in English. So we have exactly the same components. The regulatory part of the document are not translated by Lingua Custodia, but comes directly from the delegated regulation, okay, for the question, for this text. Every description was translated just right now using the API. And so you have the same report having every component ready to be published in English. Maybe at the end, if you have any particular question on how is built an SFDR periodic report, we could detail a little more. But right now, maybe Olivier, if you want to go deeper into how the translation is working.
Yeah, yes. So as you have seen, the interest of this solution is also that if there is a modification that you want to do to the report, you can ask for a translation, and it's all done fairly immediately. So any kind of changes that needs to be performed will work fairly smoothly. But this gives me the opportunity to go into a bit more the world of AI. AI is a term which is used massively today. And for very often for things that do not really relate to what should strictly be AI. When we talk about AI, we are addressing complex problems where there is not an answer, a strict answer for one problem. So it's the definition really of application of AI. It's very much when you have a lot of data that you can use in a statistical manner in order to find what could be the best solution to a problem, which does not have one single solution. And that's why translation is a very good application, and that's actually the first application of artificial intelligence, because language is complex and there's not one single answer. In the financial domain, there are many ways that AI can be used. This can be, there are a lot of new regulations that come up all the time, for which new controls need to be performed, and being able to detect to detect in advance some risk based on some patterns. That's where AI can be very interesting. There are also a lot of new technologies that can be coming into the picture that now relate to what we call NLP, which is natural language processing. A lot has been done on pure data. Sorry, I'm going to ask for the control of the screen. I have a control, Ines. Mm-hmm. No, you have it. No, I wanted to stay still a little bit on the slide before. There's a lot of quantitative data that can be used for many elements in the financial domain. And now, in fact, we realize that it's not enough. Particularly when we start to talk about ESG, there is a lot of ratings that are available. But do you have available the data that has been used to perform those ratings? And do those ratings only take into account declarative quantitative items? And if that's where those new NLP technologies can bring a lot of added values, it's when you want to be able to analyze text en masse in order to be able to detect some patterns and detect, particularly when we talk about ESG, there is a notion of greenwashing that could come into the picture. You know, are all the text and all the reference used in a marketing brochure of funds in line really with the fund prospectus when it comes back to ESG taxonomy? And that's one interesting item on which AI can be used. So Ines, if you can take the, yes, thank you. So to perform those elements, there's a lot of data which is available today. And if you want to do and to create engines or AI engines based on natural language processing, the key item is to have data, but not only just a lot of data. You need to have very clean data. And that's where everything is key. If you want to be able to detect some patterns, or if you want to create a translation engine that does work well, you need to make sure that you have selected a lot of linguistic data in a way that's going to guarantee the success of your algorithm because the data is clean. And that's why, Ines, if you can switch to the next slide. Yes, thank you. This is how we've created at Lingua Custodia a new translation engine dedicated specifically to the ESG terminology. And just to give you an example of how this is being applied, let me share my screen. So this is a type of text which is really related to ESG today and to ESG terminology. And one key element that is important when you translate this in an automated manner, so this has been machine translated from French to English. It's typically, you know, the acronyms. You need to make sure that GIEC in French is properly translated by IPCC in this type of context. And that's where specialized machine translation engine can work, because those acronyms AEE may mean something else, which in this, you know, which could make therefore the translation wrong. There are other other elements like the when we talk about the AIFM directive in French, in English we put a D on top of this. So this is just a quick illustration on how quality of data allows you to move to a very high quality specific translation engine. So here we've done this for ESG, but you know, when we developed engine for other type of documents, there are multiple ways that a generic translation engine can have it wrong. You know, even a simple word like a hedge in English can be translated in French as a couverture. Depending on the type of engine you are using, it's using the context, but sometimes it's not enough for a generic engine to picture that properly. And that's why we have developed this new ESG engine, which is connected to Sequentis platform for the SFDR reports. And I think that's it for me. Is there? Yes, but I've covered this element already on. This engine, actually, we're fairly proud to announce that it's the first specialized engine in ESG that has been rolled out by any company worldwide. We were actually the first one to really develop this with our lab. And maybe Nicolas, you want to add? There's an element you want to add to all this.
Yeah, I also want to. We have two interesting questions, Olivier, right now regarding the language that are handled and the translation process. So For the language, keep in mind we have different components in the end documents that are produced. We have what is asked by the delegated regulation in the RTS. Okay, so you have part of the text that are totally defined and that we have to use as is, as described in the regulation. And then we have the components that have to be translated each time. There are dynamic narratives, just say. So right now in the platform, regarding the regulatory part of the document, we have implemented 7 different languages that you see on screen: French, English, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, German, and Dutch. Okay. Implementing a new language will need to have the official translation from the regulators, because we think that we have to use the official part of the regulation for this. And then maybe, Olivier, you can highlight for the machine learning translation engine that is used for all the language, what you have right now, the different couple of language.
Yes, thank you. On that aspect, so as you understand, there is a distinction on the platform between the static content, like the titles or things that are the officially regulatory body part of it, and there's the dynamic content. The dynamic content is the content that goes through API to Lingua Custodia translation engines, and we are covering the various type of languages that have been presented here by Nicolas. We also cover some Asian languages such as Japanese and Chinese. So not yet for pure ESG. We cover those type of those languages for documents such as KIDs and prospectuses. For ESG, we rolled out recently the new engine for European languages, and that's what we carry on working on. And I see that there's a second question as well, which is if the translation is not satisfactory for the user. That's a very good point, because translation is very subjective. Has the user the possibility to modify the translation in the platform? I think, Nicolas, that's a good question for you. This one, I believe it's possible.
Yeah, so just to highlight the next question, yes, it was a quick demo. It's not the end process that will be put in place, and that will depend on each client somewhere. So we launch an automatic translation, and you've seen on screen, it filled every narrative, dynamic narratives that have to be used to generate the end document. Okay, so if I say no, it's not a contribution, but I want just a small cap for this small example. But then you see that you can change what you want in the translations that were done initially automatically. So yes, there is a workflow, there is a process, something has to be defined and put in place, but we think it will depend on each client. And at the end, you can change everything. And we also have, if needed, a draft versus a production mode to launch automatically the translation, to receive them in a draft mode that has to be validated before enabling the production of the document.
Thank you. Nicolas, we have one more question.
Yeah, and this one is specific for me, I mean.
Yeah, I'm gonna read it.
Yeah. So,
Nicolas, you said that a lot of ESG data are required to build the report. Can you elaborate? Can Sequentis provide all or part of those data?
Yeah, good question. SFDR report is a sustainable report. So each asset manager for each fund has to define specific indicators, specific characteristics that are promoted or that are the investment objectives of the product. So the data to be used will be dependent of each fund, just say. So it will not be the same document for 2 different funds. because you could have one fund where the investment objectives are defined around the carbon footprint, other for ESG, other for maybe just E or just S, with combination of the data from different extra financial agencies. Okay, so you may have a lot of data or not. It will really depend on the objectives that are promoted or the investment objective of the fund. So you see in this document, we have carbon footprint, we have ESG, okay, which are computed. We have something quite simple. I mean, the largest investments by companies, but we think that should be computed and displayed using a look-through whenever there is mutual funds. And using a sufficient number of look-through level to achieve at the end a correct view on the companies that are behind the investment product. Small point, this is the average over the last year. This is not the end of year position. So it had a little complexity when computing. Okay, and then we have, and what you see on screen is a dynamic computation. You have the breakdown between sustainable or E or S characteristic for the product and other, and the breakdown is achieved by sector. So for this sample, I mean, for this demo, we have put in place a rule where we say sustainable equals align with Paris Pledge. Okay, this is just an example. But this is what will have to be defined to generate SFDR reports. And for the 1B, so other environment or social characteristics, we have put in place a rule saying the E and the S from for this demo Sustainalytics ESG score should be less than 10. For Sustainalytics, the best score is 0. So it will really depend on each agency. And it could be using asset manager proprietary ESG data. If one client has its own ESG data constructed with an internal process, we are also able to upload that and integrate this in the computation. Then you have the taxonomy, which is another story. Okay, so taxonomy, European taxonomy defines, you know, just says a green share of a company. So you have a list of economic activities that are eligible to the taxonomy, some with specific criterion, other in absolute terms. And for each activity, cross company, you will have to say if this is mitigation or adaptation, or if this is transitional or enabling. Okay, so you have to go deep to be able to compute and provide the report for the taxonomy component. Today, companies does not publish the taxonomy breakdown. Okay, it will be mandatory for European companies or companies listed in an European stock market, but right now we do not have that. So we may use proxy. The European Commission through the TEG has defined some proxies for that. For each activity, saying we have a percentage that we are allowed to consider eligible to the European taxonomy. But this, keep in mind, has to be computed using a breakdown on the companies. Okay, if we take, for example, electric utilities, first one, we have a couple. We'll have to determine the percentage which is eligible to the European taxonomy for Iberdrola, for Endesa, for EDP, etc. And so we have to look through the companies, and at the end, we will compute and use this figure in the report. So just to summarize, right now, we have taxonomy data. We have ESG from different extra financial agencies, and we have are able to integrate ESG from our clients, so proprietary ESG scores. We are able to define rules to compute sustainable and other EOS characteristic investments. And we also have a carbon footprint that you may use or not. It will really depend again on each fund. We are able to compute the carbon footprint for the portfolio on an historic view. And for the carbon footprint, we have carbon for finance or Sustainalytics. Okay, for ESG right now, we have Sustainalytics and Vigeo, and we are liaising with ISS ESG.
Thank you very much, Nicolas. We have another question for, I think, Olivier this time. Are you planning on issuing the new languages for the ESG engine?
Thank you, Ines. So yes, the ESG topic is very hot at the moment. So overall, at Lingua Custodia, so the languages we're covering are all the Western European languages, plus Chinese and Japanese. We developed recently this year specifically an ESG engine for French English, which we are also currently rolling out to all the other main European, Western European languages, such as Italian, German, Dutch, Spanish, and the big next topic would be after that for the end of the year or beginning next year for the Nordics and Asian language on the ESG. The issue being always the same, to find the right taxonomy, the right language. The formal translations are only now being officialized progressively. It's a bit like the IFRS terminology for accounting, where you have a very formal translation for each of the terms. We do not have yet this type of so formal translation for all the ESG terminology, which adds complexity. So we are collecting data, a lot of data at the moment, to find what is used on the market. But this may also be influenced as soon as the formal taxonomy is being produced in many different languages.
All right. I think, all right, if you have any questions, you can use the Q&A box, and otherwise, you can contact us through LinkedIn or through our website if you have any more questions. Again, a replay of this webinar will be available very soon on the event page. So if you wish to rewatch it, we thank you all for attending this session today. Nicolas, Olivier, I don't know if you want to wrap it up.
No, it was very, thank you for your attendance. It was very nice to have a joint webinar together with Nicolas. I think this is the way for the future, to work together on those type of topics. But no, thank you for being there today. Thank you, Nicolas.
Yeah, thank you, Olivier. Just wanted to highlight the last time the importance of the data behind a regulatory report such as SFDR. Okay, Olivier told you about language data that will be used to translate. We have the extra financial data. So at the end, what we have built together, Sequentis and Lingua Custodia, this is really, we think, an engine based on a lot of data that we know each of them pretty good, and we hope that you will be convinced by this quick demo. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. We wish you a good afternoon and a nice weekend. Thank you very much.